This is the Bama Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we continue our analysis of Season 5 of The Chosen with a discussion of the 5th episode, Because of Me.
5th episode. I'm glad I have the right page of notes pulled up. I had this panic moment there for a moment. I was like, wait, which episode are we talking about today? 5th it is.
I have a little bit of follow-up from the last episode. So I went back and looked at the shaky cam situation that you mentioned, and it was indeed in the dinner with the women.
Okay.
But it was also in all of the street scenes and the disciple scenes, except for the Last Supper. The Last Supper is locked down, and the Sanhedrin is locked down on a tripod or whatever. So,
okay,
I don't know. I still completely believe it's intentional. There's no question in my mind that they know exactly what they're getting. I mean, there's a slight variability to it, but for the most part,
yeah.
I don't know why you noticed it in that one scene and not in the other scenes. Just curious. So
it caught my attention when there was a more significant jerk versus a bobble. And it was right when the camera changed to Jesus, and it looked intentional. Like it looked like, and it definitely does something to the way you're experiencing the scene, almost like you're present, or
right.
Like, I don't know what they would call it, that first person, but there was almost like a whoop, we're gonna grab Jesus. And I was like, oh wait, is the camera shaking? And then I watched throughout the scene and was like, oh yeah. So anyway,
yeah,
that's what got my attention originally. I don't notice that kind of stuff in the ways that you do, but that one got me.
Yeah, it makes the camera a little more of a character and less of a like,
yep,
you know, you're
sure.
just passively observing from a distance. So
yep,
it did make me notice, or I mean, I think I noticed it before, but just made me think about the beautiful dolly shot that they had as Jesus was giving the new command to love, where the camera is just like rolling backwards on a track and just slowly revealing more of the table. Love that stuff.
Yeah, that was good.
Also, the whole Satan thing, I looked that up. So it is the word Satanas or Satan, depending on which lexicon you're looking at. It is the only time John uses the term in his gospel. He uses it 7 times in Revelation, but it's only the one time in the gospel. And I was so distracted by thinking about that aspect of it, and like Jesus in the show saying, well, it's not God. The text saying Satan went into him. Like, I was thinking about that whole thing. I completely missed the following couple of verses, Marty.
I'm trying to remember them. Yeah, lay it on me.
Verse 27, as soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. So Jesus told him, what you're about to do quickly. But no one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. Since Judas had charge of the money, some thought Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the festival or to give something to the poor.
Oh, sure.
As soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out. I'm like, oh, it's right there. I just cannot believe every single time I'm like, where is this coming from? Oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about that, blah, blah, blah. And then it's right there in the text.
Yep.
I don't know why this surprises me anymore, but
yep.
Anyway, that's what I got.
Yeah, that's the problem of not having the original text was largely meant to be a spoken word, a heard word, rather than a read word. Or you obviously didn't have the printing press, but one of the beauties of having the text in front of us, if you spend all day thinking about this stuff all the time, it is hard to remember half the time. What is the stuff that you think about, or the way it's been framed, or the discussion about the possibilities versus like what's in the actual text itself. When you don't have your Bible open in front of you, you talk so much about the Bible, it's hard to remember where your stream of consciousness ends and the actual text begins. So,
well, that is a kind interpretation, Marty. Thank you. I think I should probably just know my text a little better, but whatever.
Spoiler horn.
So we have the disciples not sitting at the table at the start of this one. They're pleading with Jesus about who will betray him and what's going to happen. And we see Judas theorizing to Z and Philip that, hey, maybe it's Thomas, blah, blah, blah. Of course, Thomas isn't part of this conversation, but then we see Thomas go over and ask Jesus directly. And I loved the line. He's like, did I mess this up? Is it because of this? Is it because I'm angry? And Jesus says to him, you have been faithful in spite of your anger.
Yeah, it's a great line. Really good line.
And I don't even know how many other people heard that or how much stock, especially because the timeline's out of order. So I'm not sure exactly was that just for Thomas? Or did the whole group think like, oh, okay, so it's not Thomas. We know that.
Yeah, I can't remember how. My memory had it just between him and Jesus. but I can't remember where it happened and how that, if I just heard it that way or.
Yeah. And obviously they're all in the same room, but everyone is so preoccupied with their theories and making sure that it's not them that I'm not sure that even if anybody was next to Thomas and Jesus, that they actually would have heard him anyway.
Yeah, totally. And through a lot of this scene, I get the impression that like maybe this person or these couple heard that. And like when John goes to put it all together later, they might have all shared stories about who said what, or it's not that all 12 have to be hearing it, but if little bits and pieces are overhearing that or bits of the room are involved and engaged, that made it very believable to me.
Yeah. But the disciples continue arguing. It kind of gets a little bit elevated. Jesus rebukes them. They return to the table. And then we have the conversation from Luke 22 about who is the greatest. And then there's the comment about how they'll judge the 12 tribes. And I think it was Peter who was like, well, what about the betrayer? Is he going to judge them too? And Jesus says, you'll sort that out.
Yeah.
And then they go back into the drops of wine for the plagues. And Jesus asked John to start the Daenu, kind of bridging it back to that scene from the last episode.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I've really fallen in love with how they're using this. Now it's fun to know about your theatrical experience that I didn't know until last episode, but I've loved how it's worked out with every episode starting like this. It's been good.
And then we're into the credits. So we have Yanni and Ananus and Gadara and Zebediah walking through the markets, and they're kind of just talking about what's going on. Barnaby comes up and provokes them. Just absolutely ruthless. I cannot imagine he could actually get away with. I don't know. It was unrelenting.
You know how when you make a great, I'm not a professional screenwriter. I don't even know what language to use, but when you make a great piece of work, there's often a character that just fits into that role. It's not overdone, but they just pop in, and he has definitely filled that role nicely. I too wondered, like, does he get away with that in their world? Second Temple Judaism, maybe, but I love it as somebody appreciating the season work. I just love Barnaby popping in and doing his thing.
Yeah, saying the things that we all want to say. So Gadara makes a comment on Jesus saying that prostitutes will enter the kingdom before them. And Zebediah was like, you don't even believe in the kingdom. And he's like, well, it's just the principle. And Ananus is like, well, look, at the end of the day, Jesus doesn't actually have anything to offer here. He's just saying all of these big things and like currying their favor, but he's not actually going to be able to do anything for them. Reality is going to set back in eventually, so we don't have to worry about this. But then they get to the courtyard at Caiaphas's house. And Ananus is saying like, hey, look, Caiaphas does not understand human impulses. He will inevitably mismanage this. And then they'll do whatever they want to do to like turn it around.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But Shoshana, I guess, is Caiaphas's wife. And she comes out, greets them. They go inside. This is Ananus's sister. And this is, Maggie could not get over this. And I agree. This is crazy. The actor who plays Caiaphas is 81 years old.
Wow.
And Shoshana is maybe 30. If we're like, she doesn't have an age listed on her bio, and her website says that she can play 18 to 36. I'm like, well, even at the most generous end of that range, that is quite the age gap for Caiaphas and his wife. So
that wouldn't be odd though for that point in history. I can't remember where like whose birth order falls, but those families would have taken wives after they lost wives.
Not his first wife.
And would have kept fathering, especially these families would have been big on fathering more progeny for their line. So it's believable.
Yeah.
Not if it was like his original marriage with. And there are some people that are really into like how I don't know what we know for sure from history, but there are folks that could really get into that, and I'm not one of them. So I can't remember who falls in the priestly family, but it's possible.
Yeah. Not comfortable, but possible. So Ananus brought people with him, of course, and Caiaphas was hoping for a one-on-one consultation, I guess. Ananus quotes Proverbs 11 about many counselors, whatever. And Caiaphas is like, why do I even, or he says, why does he even need collaborators? Tensions are very high, like a lot of posturing, a lot of like, you're not really doing this right. And at the end of the day, he's like, well, look, I don't even need to talk to anybody because the decision has already been made to arrest Jesus.
Things are in motion. I'm still at this point trying to figure out, what are they doing with these characters? Why are they working them in the way that they are? Especially when the things where the wheels are already in motion. I'm like, okay, we've worked very hard to bring him into the conversation in this way on purpose. I'm still curious if there's some larger thing that the dots haven't connected. Or as you've noticed, is right there in the text the whole time, and I didn't even realize it.
Always a possibility. So we have next the disciples walking, and they notice the withered fig tree. So this is kind of the Mark 11 version of the story. Jesus responds with this same language from Mark 11, and then moves into the conversation from Matthew 24 about how they're going to go through tribulation and death. And then Jesus is like, look, I gotta let you guys know, like, I'm going to be delivered up to be crucified. And the disciples are like, no, it can't be like that, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, some of them are getting it more than others in this moment.
Yeah, I have one note about a line I really loved about this fig tree portion. And it's when Jesus is like, there's this exasperated moment where he's like, I have told you this. What is the line I wrote down?
But before this, something else must happen, which I have told you before. And yet you seem unwilling, unable, or not sober enough to absorb.
They're acting like oblivious. And Jesus is like, I have clearly spoken this to you. And obviously he's exasperated as they portray it. But he also has this recognition of like, I understand you may not have been able to understand it. I understand you may not want to receive it. Like you may just be trying to avoid it. And I understand you might not, like you're just, and I even thought of the parable of the sower. Like you're not even present enough to hear it. You're present enough, but your own agendas are getting in the way. You're present enough, but you're also have no depth. Like I felt like that same kind of line of reasoning. That was a cool part of the scene. That was a powerfully delivered line on Rumi's part. I thought that was really good.
So then we show up with Claudia, and she has some musicians playing for her. She's just kind of sitting there on the bed, and Pilate kind of storms in tired of the music, and she is recounting some elements of a vision or something, or a dream that she had. I don't know exactly what it was, but she kind of like suddenly has this realization, like, we got to get out of this city. She's very troubled. Pilate does not say anything that helps her, only makes it worse. And she's like, well, I can't actually leave. I'd leave without you. And he's like, well, that's not going to look good. And she's like, well, no, I can't leave actually, because then you'll do something really stupid. So again, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out. It's interesting to have this extra character in the Pilate storyline.
Yeah, and how that part does fit the pieces. I really like how they've built that out. There are some characters and bits of the story where we only have like 2 or 3 significant bits, like the Claudia storyline in the Gospels, where she tells Pilate very clearly she's been troubled by Jesus. She's seen him in a dream, don't have anything to do with him. And yet they've taken that and they've built it out in a really substantial way that fits the character development. I mentioned a couple episodes ago, like just how I'm learning about Pilate and how he situated himself, according to some scholars. I think I quoted N.T. Wright a few episodes ago. But that's one dynamic that I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm tracking with that.
My curiosity is how she ends up playing into the whole trial and everything later on, if at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I'm very interested to see that too.
Pilate goes out of the room with Claudia, and Atticus is standing there, and he reports that the Pharisees are plotting to arrest Jesus, which is an interesting, perhaps misunderstanding on Atticus's part, because we know that it's not actually the Pharisees who are responsible for that. Meanwhile, the Pharisees are getting told they're trying to do this public trap and it's not working. So the other guys are going to take matters into their own hands. So interesting that Atticus is, especially considering like how much he is aware of the high priest stuff, and It's an interesting misunderstanding, and I feel like it has to be intentional.
Well, and I'm not sure if as they're portraying it, it's as much of a misunderstanding as we would typically be seeing these scenes, because they're definitely portraying Shmuel as one of the biggest, like, it's not ultimately his plot, but the one kind of like they need the Pharisees to essentially on the Sanhedrin side get involved.
Yeah.
And the loudest kind of like, talk about lacking sobriety, like the craziest voice.
Yeah.
It's just like, we got to kill him. Like he's guilty of death. This has become, it wasn't the whole time, but it's become Shmuel.
Right.
So you can see and not a universal Pharisaical presence.
Right.
They've done a good job portraying that. But perhaps Atticus really feels like there's a plot underneath it.
Yeah.
And maybe because of Pilate's relationship with the Sadducees and Caiaphas, but the people that are out, like doing the moving and shaking, trying to make this thing move, could be the Pharisees.
That's true. Yeah. Atticus is the one in the streets seeing all the people moving around. He's seeing Shmuel more than anybody else. So that does make sense, actually.
Yeah.
But Pilate says they can't arrest Jesus, but hey, maybe they will do it anyway, and then we can just fine them, and that'll make up for all of our lost revenue, and then no problem. Like, everything's solved. And then Atticus comes up and just grabs Pilate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of tells him, like, look, dude, here's who I really am. And I've been trying to be nice to you this whole time, and you're really messing some things up. So Pilate is like, you can't touch me like that. And Atticus is like, oh, yes, I can.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he kind of storms off and he's like, I'm going to go take care of some of these things myself. But when the time comes, you better be ready to take the reins.
Yeah, that he is derelict in his duty was the line. That what a well-delivered line. I thought it was a great showing of practical power on an imperial level, on a Roman level. You have like this practical authority that Atticus has versus, I wouldn't say it's empty authority, but simply authority by title of Pilate.
Yeah.
And you have this real collision of that. And that's what I was speaking of a few episodes ago, quoting N.T. Wright and what I've recently been learning about Pilate. Had I not been reading that and doing so much study this year in that, I probably would have not loved that scene. But I'm having to like adjust maybe some of the assumptions that I've made about who Pilate was and how he operated, and thought that was it was actually really helpful for my brain to like, oh, maybe it was more like this and less like I had assumed before.
And kind of fun to see Atticus, who's kind of been more of a jovial character. Like he's always snacking on something. He's laughing about stuff, Yeah. He's having serious conversations. He's, paying attention to stuff, but he's been, more or less just hanging out most of the time. And now he's like, nope, we have a problem now. And now I'm going to take care of business.
Really grown to like that character. Like I always liked him, but I wasn't sure like how he was going to work over the course of multiple seasons. Like what have they done? Why is he here? Really have enjoyed what that character has allowed them to do in the Greco-Roman elements of the story. Really, really great. I've enjoyed that.
So then we're back with the Sanhedrin. Gadara says that Jesus has to die. And Yusuf says they don't have the authority to do that. And by the way, Jesus isn't even a thorn to all of us. And Shmuel makes a comment about how he has contempt for Torah, among other things. And Shimon was like, no, he doesn't have contempt for Torah, just some of the other stuff. And maybe we should be thinking about that. And ultimately, Caiaphas cuts off the whole conversation. He's like, look, we're running out of time. Our peril is serious. And the only answer is prayer. He goes into this very elaborate prayer. A prayer that you might consider a good prayer, if not for the understanding of where Caiaphas's mindset actually is. So it feels very showy and empty. And at the end of it, Shmuel is very troubled, and Yanni checks on him, and then they cut the scenes short there.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to do. Like, what's happening with Shmuel all of a sudden? Like, what was that all about? Was it the prayer? Was it all of a sudden he realizes who he's out? I'm interested to see. I'm now caught up, Brent. I haven't watched any future episodes.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see what they do with Shmuel for the next few episodes and because I didn't know, like, what is that? Where is he going to go? Because he may be realizing, like, oh, I've gotten so wrapped up in my own agenda, I now realize I'm allied with people I am not usually allied with.
Yeah.
I thought this whole scene was just a great sober. I've used that word now way too much in this episode. It was such a great word earlier. Now it's in my mind. It's stuck in my mind now. It's such a great word. But I think this is a great opportunity just to be self-reflective in this scene about what we do with our own religious, so Shmuel gets Torah and tradition all tangled up. Jesus doesn't like Torah.
Yeah.
And boy, do I feel that, because we're not going to make this about me, but I can personally attest to being accused on the regular of not well, he doesn't really love the Bible. Marty doesn't. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I've made my whole life. And what we get tangled up is our interpretations, our theology, our tradition about the Bible. And we make those things the same thing. Here's Shmuel, he has a disdain, or what was the contempt? He has contempt for Torah. And I'm like, wait, no, he doesn't have contempt for Torah. He has contempt for some of our traditions and some of the ways we've interpreted it. But he doesn't have contempt for, but how easily it is to tangle those things up and not be able to pull those things apart. How easy it is to fill our church services or our podcasts or anything else with the right words. I think of Caiaphas's prayer. You can fill it up with the right words. You can quote scripture. That, I think you said it, Brent, that prayer was full of text, self-justified, eyes closed, pleading to the God of heaven to protect our agenda. And boy, how you can end up on the wrong side of a story. And so just a call to be self-reflective and really examine how those things sneak into the way we do stuff every day. So I like that scene and its ability to talk to my own context, and I think a lot of us.
Yeah, I don't think I actually said it, but yes, the prayer is full of text. I did not go to the trouble of looking up all of it. It was too much time. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind spending the time on it. I just did not have the time to do that.
Yeah.
But then we are back with the disciples. They are gathered together in a room. Emotions are very high. Matthew hugs Peter. Other people are hugging other people. And then they get into this conversation where they're wondering if Jesus really means what he says. And Andrew's like, well, maybe we're just being tested. And John's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. And John's like, this is not new. We just haven't been paying attention. I think John kind of got the message from the fig tree earlier. And Matthew's like, well, hold on. What if we actually take him serious? Like, what would it mean if he actually means what he says? And then Judas starts to go into this theory, and he's like, hey, maybe if he does mean it, maybe he'll actually get crucified, and then we'll know, and then we can go look for the real Messiah. And everybody freaks out about that, of course. And I think it was Big James or maybe Philip was like, okay, no, hold on. Let him finish what he's saying. And he's like, well, maybe he means it, and maybe he's going to get delivered up. But then in the last moment, he'll, come out in full power, and he will evade death in the last moments. And, everyone is kind of uncomfortable with that idea, but some people are like, well, yeah, that could be how it plays out. It's possible. So they're not having the greatest time, but they're,
no,
I think they're slowly starting to work through their interpersonal tensions a little bit.
Yep.
They're starting to realize I was being a little too accusatory of you. I need to remember that you're my brother. We're all in this together. We've all dedicated our life to this for the last 3 years. None of us want to see this all fall apart. So I think they're starting to reform those bonds that have kind of been messy for the last few episodes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to frame that. On another hand, it's just like a complete unraveling, high emotions, obviously understood. That's in the text. Yes, yes, yes. But I did see, because I almost sensed the opposite of what you just said. But there was an element that you're talking about, which is they're not the same people they were 3 years ago. They're not the same people they were at the beginning of the ministry. They have formed bonds. And so some of those bonds are actually pulling them together. And yet some of their divisions are deep and sharp and very much not on the same page and arguing. And the person I think that you referenced earlier was actually Z, that almost comes to Judas's, I wouldn't say defense, but it's hold on, let him finish.
Oh, was it Z? Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was Z if my memory serves me correctly, because I thought, that's cool. It's a cool little character to work in there. And he doesn't agree with Judas for Judas's sake, but he also agrees with some of what Judas is saying. So it was this really great dynamic as far as screenwriting, because there was all the division. There was the arguing about who's the greatest. There's disagreement. There's the grief of the disciples. There's James crying. There's high emotions, but there's also, we didn't go back to square one. There's development of community. There's development of their own thought, yet there's still short-sightedness, short tempers, disagreement. I just really liked that scene. And I'm glad you said it the way you said it, because there's other ways to frame what we're seeing about their interactions. It's really good.
Well, and the bonds are definitely not fully healed. But I think I see hope in this scene that I haven't seen in the last few episodes.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way of, I can see hope of what, spoiler alert, we know is going to happen post-resurrection in the book of Acts. Like, Jesus has built some stuff. He's planted some seeds, even though Jesus is pretty exasperated right now, like wondering if they've listened to anything he's taught. Yeah. And I can't even imagine what it was like to be there. But like that stuff that the Holy Spirit is going to pull together after the resurrection, like it is there. The pieces are there.
And Z is the one who says, I will not accept having wasted 3 years of my life. And he storms out and trips over a rock and then is mad at the rock and kicks the rock and died. I don't know if he hurt both feet or just hurt one foot twice, but he's not having the greatest moment. And then he looks up and he sees Atticus leading some soldiers through the street, and he snaps back into Z mode and starts following them. And the soldiers end up breaking into this house, and the house is occupied by Coffney and his crew. And Atticus looks at Coffney and smiles, and Coffney's like, I don't know what's going on here. He's still very fearful, but Atticus has some kind of plan here. And that's the end of that storyline for this episode. So we don't know what happens with that yet. But then we go to Shmuel, and he is on his way to see Caiaphas. He's past visiting hours, but he's ultimately allowed in. And he's like, hey, we have this potential asset who can lead us straight to Jesus. And then we see Mary walking, and she's basically kidnapped by our shadowy figure, Jake.
And they keep going back and forth. So the buildup is obviously this asset they're referencing is Mary. That's how my family interpreted it.
I mean, yes.
The buildup, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, what's going on here? Yeah.
This isn't in the text. Like, what's happening? But great. Like, as far as how they cut that and filmed that and wrote that, whew, it's cool.
Yeah, so this whole thing's back and forth. The whole, I don't understand why the kidnapping sort of process was necessary.
Well, at the end, we're going to know why they decided to write it that way.
Right, but I feel like they could have just whispered in Mary's ear where they're going, and she'd be like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, but instead they had this whole, but whatever. So Shmuel was like, well, the one hiccup here is that we might need some money. I don't think he actually says money, but he's like, we might need something. And Caiaphas is like, yeah, we can do that.
Yes, correct.
We cut back, we see Mary being transported.
But the way they phrased it too, you didn't know if he was going to say money. You didn't know if he was going to say, we're going to need to kill somebody.
Oh, okay.
It was open-ended.
Okay.
This may require... Like you didn't know what, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then it's Mary, and it's like, and then it's Mary, and then it's Mary, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is it going to require? And we know that we know the story well enough. It was like, well, is he talking about the money?
Yeah.
Is this going to be Judas?
Yeah.
What's happening with Mary? And like we were pulled into it. It was so good.
Well, so then the cart that Mary is in pulls up to the house, and then Malchus walks up to the window and announces the arrival.
Yes.
And then Mary's being brought out of the cart, and then Malchus opens the door, and it's Judas and Shmuel.
And Judas walks through. Very sly. Well done, chosen.
But then we're like, well, what is Mary doing then? And
exactly.
So she's led through the house, and then we come back, we see Judas sit down with Caiaphas, and then we're back in the other house with Mary, and then Nicodemus appears.
Dirty, rotten chosen.
This was the end of a 3-episode set in the theater, so this is how the screening ended. Was Nicodemus.
And
I was like, yes.
Dirty, rotten move.
So good.
I mean, I had been wondering every now and then I've remembered Nicodemus, and I was like, oh, they're going to bring him back eventually. And obviously you remember from that was it the first season? Like he was done after the first season, right?
I believe it was just first season. Yeah, I think so.
If you remember, like my favorite character, like I don't want to say that when I saw his face, like violently emotional, but What a dirty, rotten trick.
Yes.
I did not see it coming. And he turned around, I saw his face, and just instantly started crying. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Nicodemus. Nico's back.
Yep.
Woo!
Yep. He's finally fallen through on what he couldn't quite bring himself to do in the first season.
Well done, shows and writers. And that was the end of the second theatrical installment, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was well done. They got me. They got me at every turn there in the last 5 or 10 minutes. Ugh.
Yep. So that was good. So that'll do it for episode 5, Marty.
You got it.
All right. Listeners can go to BehemothDiscipleship.com to get in touch with us, to see what we're up to see where we might show up next. But yeah, thank you for joining us on the Behemoth Podcast this week. We will talk to you again very soon.